whole
Oh,
age.
yeah, yeah, it won't let me.
You'll home back to the hub.
PTS.
Yeah, some small bugs. It's Trove.
Baba Booey.
Yep, that was completely unexpected. Hello and welcome to another JMP video. I'm your host JonNario, and today I'm going to be talking about essentially what can you expect as a 40,000 power rank in stuff like U11 or in stats, gems, and all that stuff. So yes, I'm going to be talking about essentially most of the things that I know as of right now in terms of like U11 and how easy it is going to be or difficult, I don't know, it's going to be to get to 40,000 power rank, and what are going to be some of the requirements that you do need in order to achieve the elusive 40k. Now, let's go over some of the more important things, which is just going to be my stats. As you quickly can see that my stats are going to be 480k, 103% crit hit, 2531.7 crit damage, and 8.5k light. You're going to see this stat being so ridiculously high, even with 3 mil HP. You might be just going like, what the hell is going on? This is just incredibly high stats. But in reality, this type of stats are not necessarily too high. This is actually average to maybe slightly above average in terms of stats for 40,000 power rank. Keep in mind, this is with proper build, at least as close to proper as possible. So yeah, this is going to be more or less in line with a standard 40k PR, which is crazy to think about because this stats just on paper looks ridiculous. And yeah, so my equipment is just going to consist of crystal level 4 hat and face, and crystal level 3 almost maxed out bow. All of my stacks are very sporadic. As long as I have movement speed, I really don't care. And also it's going to be my weekly torch, animated jug, crystal 4 ring, free range electrolytic crystal, martial trail, and conjurer's crucible. And I had the bard subclass because I do have a 35k PR bard. So some of you are wondering what type of gems do I actually have. Actually, before going into the gems, I need to just mention that my mastery is going to be 550 Trove, 30 Geo. So keep in mind that my Geo mastery is very, very low. So I'm missing 700 light. So that's quite a lot. Anyways, let's go over the gems. So my empowered gems are going to consist of 1 physical damage to crit damage roll across my fire, water, and air gem. All 3 of them have 1 physical to crit damage easily, as you can tell right here. My lesser gem is going to be the complete opposite. 2 physical damage, 1 crit damage to be exact. So 2 physical damage, 1 crit damage across 5 of my gems. The other one, I have 1 of each because it's the best one that I managed to have, but I didn't even re-roll once. So yes, I do have a 1 of each roll right here. This one, it could easily just turn out to be perfect either way. So yeah, it is what it is. I'm not going to just try to re-roll it at this point because I don't need to. And the test server, as of the time I'm recording this, is going to close down in 2 days. So anyways, so my cosmic gems is going to consist of 3 light rolls. So yes, just essentially just imagine this build to be close to a quote-unquote perfect rolled build. Not the strongest 100% number 1 roll, but yes, it's just still going to be close to maxed out in terms of coefficient. And yeah, this is pretty much the type of build that you should be rocking, with the exception of this gem right here, and you will be doing just fine. A couple of things that you may or may have noticed is going to be in regards to how much stats that you actually do get with gems now with the crystal gems. All of my gems are going to be level 28 or 27. So as you can tell, I'm still missing 2 levels and there's still some stat missing. And yeah, you can easily tell that the amount of stats that you can get with 1 pearl is ridiculous. Like maximum of 13,000 physical damage, and I do believe the maximum on a lesser gem with 2 pearls on physical damage on a lesser gem, level 25 100% is like 10k, and this one with 1 pearl is already 13k, and with 2 pearls 18k. Is ridiculous. It's a lot of stats that you can just get with all of these gems. And same goes with critical hit. Right now, getting to 100% critical hit is way too easy. It's not even funny. Like right now, I don't have a critical hit on 4 of my gems. So I don't have critical hit here, 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 and here. So I don't have crit hit because I do have a crit hit weapon, and Shadowhunter does have crit hit by default. So yes, those are the kind of stats and gems that you can just expect to get to around 40,000 power rank. And also, if you're wondering what kinds of dragon, how many dragons do I have, because they do count towards quite a bit of the power rank. I do have plenty of dragons. So I do have pretty much everything except the mastery dragon. I have it right here. So that's 12. And then there's 32 legendary dragons, which grants power rank each, with the exception of Ludini, which is weird. And I also do have all 3 primordial dragons. So yes, I do have plenty of dragons on this account as well. But either way, that's kind of the stats that you can just expect to get to 40,000 power rank. Now, how much damage am I dealing inside U11? Let's just go right here into this target dummy and just attack it for a little bit. As you can tell, my damage is kind of high. Actually, let me just go into a regular portal because I do believe that target dummy is taking more damage than it should. So let me just go into a regular adventure portal so you can actually just see in regards to my actual damage. So my damage should be like around 25-26 mil damage. So 25-26 with passive, which is like 12 to 13 mil in coefficient. So you can actually just see that that is going to be like essentially my damage. And I crash. Now let's just go into U11. Coefficient of around 13 mil is much higher than anything that you can just expect. It's almost double the amount. I believe the maximum amount, at least for most characters, is like 16-18 mil, give or take, in terms of coefficient, which is just absolutely ridiculous. And the light just gets increased by quite a lot, which I forgot to mention that on the light, it got increased in one of the latest patch. And now light, you get a lot of light on cosmic gems, so the light increase is just going to be that much greater than stellar. The reason I'm mentioning this is because it's very important. So let me just head into U11 right about now. Alright, so right here I'm in U11. As you obviously remember that my damage on basic attack was around 26 mil, and if I actually do shoot an enemy, it's, you know, give or take around 10% of that damage that I'm dealing, which is going to be 2.5 mil, close to 2.6 mil. So I'm currently dealing around 10% of my coefficient against those type of enemies with 8.5k light. So that's amount of damage that you can just expect with the kind of stats that I have with 8.5k light. 10% of your actual damage, which may not sound like a lot, but keep in mind that I have 8.5k light and I'm missing quite a lot of light with both not having a crystal level 4 weapon and also not having maxed out light on all of my gems in terms of light augmentation. And I also don't have 70 mastery, geomastery levels, which is 700 light right there. And light is super extremely important. This is probably the biggest tip that I can give you right now. Get as much light as possible if you want to dish out damage in U11, because light, again, I need to just mention that light is going to be a percentage of your true damage. Essentially, that's your armor penetration. The more light that you do have, the more of your true damage you're dealing to those particular enemies that have the darkness or armor stats. So this is something that you need to just increase because it's percentage. And considering, like I just mentioned before, maximum coefficient is around 16 to 18 mil damage coefficient, even the smallest amount of percentage increase is quite a lot. And you can actually just quickly see that, again, I'm dealing like essentially around 10% of my damage. Whenever I just have more light from my Berserk Battler, I'm actually dealing well over 3.2 to 3.3 million damage, which is a lot to think about because 3.3 million damage from basic attack is absolutely ridiculous. As you can tell, if I go into actual stage 2 Berserk Battler, he can go upwards of 3.7 million damage, and you can actually quickly see how much light it actually makes a difference. So like I just mentioned, once again, my damage is around 2.5 mil to 3.2 mil. But if I actually do equip both Ernie, which is plus 100 light from my other ally, Animated Jug, and if I do equip the Solarian subclass, I do have a total of extra 240 extra light. And look at how much different 240 extra light does. Now I'm dealing 3.6 million damage and 2.9 million damage. So 2.9, 3.6 in stage 2 Berserk Battler. And you can actually quickly see that it just transforms your damage exponentially like crazy. And keep in mind that I'm missing 700 from the Geomastery, so you can quickly see that it quickly starts to add up like more and more the more light that you do have. So light is extremely important, so put that in like everywhere. Light is extremely important. The way that you obtain light the best way possible in my eyes is obviously get yourself crystal level 4 equipment. If you do have a crystal level 3 base equipment, try to get yourself crystal 4. Crystal 4 base is the same amount of light as a maxed out crystal level 3 in terms of fully pearl with a crystal level 4 no stars and a Crystal Level 3 maxed out with fully stars. So make sure to actually go for Crystal Level 4 equipment as much as you can. Same with ring. Make sure to get a Crystal Level 4 ring. It will give you the most amount of light possible. In terms of the ally, you can actually just go with stuff like Ernie. Definitely for magic damage character, go with Orkian because 400 light. But for physical damage, you can go with Ernie or Animated Jug. You can technically sacrifice Ernie with Animated Jug if you really have high stats. But if you don't, go with Ernie, and then obviously get yourself the highest torch possible. Luckily, like if you complete the batch of the 250 Leviathans, you can actually just get yourself the permanent torch for Uber 10. So you see it right here. This is the 250 Leviathan slain. This will grant you an extra Uber 10 permanent torch. So if you don't have it, that's going to be a lot of light. Obviously, make sure to always have free range electrolytic crystals. This is 300 light. And also Cosmic Gem, and make sure to get them with full light rolls if you can. Same with Berserk Battler that I mentioned in the case of like, what is it, like the ally. Berserk Battler is going to be something that you may need only if you do have lower stats. But if you do have high stats, you generally don't need it. You can just use Vampire Vanquisher. It will do better for you. Same with the subclass. You can just use the Solarian subclass, level up a Solarian to level 30. Because the stat that you do see right here is based on the level of the Solarian, not based on the power rank. So this 140 extra light is based on the level 30 on your character. So level the Solarian to level 30 for the extra 140 light if you want it, if you want the extra damage. So yes, that's going to be essentially some of the things that you may want to consider in order to do, because like I just mentioned, light is going to be very, very important. And considering that your damage is going to be really, really high, by default, any small percentage increase is going to make a huge difference. Speaking of damage, let's go over the emblems. Please use your emblems as much as possible. If you're one of those players that generally use a lot of Death Defying Vial, Death Defying Vial is not as useful here, at least in most of the Uber 11. In the Uber 11, in the new biome, in the Thunder Uplands, yes, I would probably say maybe use Death Defying if you want, but you don't need to. Considering that the amount of critical hit that you can sacrifice for maximum health, you can essentially just tank out like a lot of damage from the enemies inside Uber 11. As you can actually just see, I'm taking damage like crazy, and they're barely doing enough damage, because enemies in Uber 11 really don't do a lot of damage, and it will allow you to have a lot of time to just heal up and just defeat the enemies. So this will allow you to just use your flask more aggressively, which is what I would recommend anyone to do anyways. Use your flask aggressively in terms of just use them to dish out as much damage as possible, because you want the most damage that you can. Enemies are not going to be dying one shot without Martial. You need to be using Martial and Arcane, so keep those things in mind. Another thing about Uber 11 is going to be the enemies outside of the dungeons are weaker than the enemies that are inside the dungeons. So as you can actually just tell right here, I'm dealing like, you know, that was a lot of damage everywhere. But yeah, 3.3 mil damage, give or take. And if I actually do shoot a boss or a dungeon, you can actually just see that I was like at 2 mil, something like that. Let me just go into a better dungeon because that was a terrible example. But you can actually just see, if I actually just go into a Curse Skull, enemies like this one, 2.8, 3.3, this is like the regular surface enemy. But if I actually do shoot enemies everywhere, you can actually just see that my damage just goes down a little bit below 3 mil damage. It's like 2.9 mil, 2.3 mil, and you know, it's slightly below. It's not that much lower, but it's still lower damage. And yeah, definitely for sure it's going to matter quite a lot. One last thing that before I go is just going to be in regards to enemies inside Geotopside. The reason I'm in Geotopside is because enemies in Geotopside do have less HP than enemies outside of Geotopside. So if I actually do shoot an enemy in Geotopside with one burst, let me just get rid of the subclass right here real quick so you can actually have a better perspective of what I mean. If I actually do shoot an enemy with my basic attack with Martial, you can actually see that I essentially just kill it in one burst, which is 4 shots for the Shadowhunter. So I will just be able to kill the enemies quite consistently with 4 shots with my Shadowhunter if I do have Martial active. This is not the case outside of this Uber 11. So in Uber 11, on the other portal, the enemies do have a little bit more HP than the enemies in Geo Topside. Let me just go in and find myself an enemy so you can actually see what I mean. Again, like I just mentioned, like in the Shadow Hunter on Geo Topside, I was one-shotted with one burst with the basic attack. And the enemies is that you see right here. Why is this always so difficult to find regular enemies here? You can actually just see with a basic attack, I'm not able to one-shot because enemies outside of the outside do have more HP. So this will take a little bit longer to actually kill. So keep all of those things in mind. They are not going to be exactly the same thing. The enemies outside of the outside are indeed stronger. And by stronger, I mean they have more HP, but they take the same amount of damage and they do the same amount of damage. It's just that they have more HP. Now, let's move on into the Thunder Uplands inside Uber 11. So you can actually see that the new biome is the only one that is actually strong. So in Uber 11 Thunder Uplands, enemies are just ridiculously strong. Let me just tell you that much. The Thunder Uplands is definitely the area that I will say that, yes, enemies are strong. They have more HP than anything that I just mentioned, and they take less damage than everything. So as you can tell, 2-3 bursts essentially just to kill one enemy with Marshall. So you can actually just see that enemies here in the Thunder Uplands, they do indeed take less damage. The reason being is because there are some scrolls that you can just equip to your character or just use that will give you a buff that allows you to do more damage. So that's probably the reason why the enemies right here do take less damage. But outside of this biome, pretty much all enemies are quite easy to defeat. I need to mention this. Don't expect to kill enemies in Uber 11 the same way that you expect to kill enemies in Uber 10. This is going to be something that is going to get a little bit of use to for those who have not played the Crystal Combat update when it came out. The Crystal Combat update when it came out, it was equally as difficult as this one, and in actuality it was even worse than this one because when Crystal Combat launched, there was no Cosmic Gem prior to that update and there was no Crystal Gear, so we had to actually grind literally everything. Now you can just prepare yourself and essentially just upgrade rather than just get a bunch of new different things. Just upgrade all of the things that you already have and you're going to be doing pretty well inside Uber 11. But yeah, that's going to be everything for me. Letting you all know that Uber 11, in my own personal opinion, is currently in a good position. There's going to be certain characters that are going to feel much weaker than they need to be, which is kind of a bummer, but in due time, they're going to get stronger and stronger because obviously we're going to get updates that is just going to keep increasing our light. And the more light that we do have, the more damage that we will be doing inside Uber 11. So that's going to be everything for me. I'm just going to defeat this boss real quick. But you can quickly just see that in Uber 11, 40,000 power rank is more than capable, and 40,000 power rank is like the equivalent of like the new 30 or the new 31 KPR. So it's still very much achievable with every single character in the game. Thank you for watching. Thank you for checking out as always. Leave a like, subscribe for more content like this. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next time. Take care and keep on hunting.